Okay, a very good morning to everyone. So welcome for the class for today. So today, any of you know that what's the class you attend today? What's the class title? Pita. Okay, so what's the purpose for attending the class? Exam. Not for the content, not for knowledge, not for the name. So most important is about exam tomorrow. Okay, good. So today, actually, in fact, we're going to go through we talk about digital financial planner, the module 2. Then we're going to cover for total 11 topic for today. So in fact, the topic is very tedious, but for examination purpose, we're going to touch those important elements. So hopefully, can give you some idea what will be the element and also how to assist you to pass it for examination. Okay, good. So before I start, perhaps I just do a simple quick introduction about myself. So my name is Chi Yong. You can call me my full name. I'm Chi Yong, also doesn't matter. So I noticed one thing, a lot of people like to call my full name one. I'm Chi Yong, maybe more how to say easier to call. So sometimes they feel that call my surname I'm not don't have the feel. So Chi Yong also no feel, but I'm Chi Yong, the feeling is there. Okay. So basically, actually in fact I'm licensed financial planner, I have FA, and also certified financial planner under FABC, and also obtained my HRD certificate under the trainer courses, so certified trainer under human resource department, and most importantly, in fact, being the certified planner for past 10 years and certified trainer for under FABC for past 10 years, so I conducted a lot of training, particularly in terms of financial planning method and also the financial literacy. This one is my core. So I also serve as an external lecturer under one of the financial college in China. So I can speak Chinese, so I can teach some financial course in China on and off. And most importantly, in fact, I also serve as an independent director under one of listed company in US. So more on the financial consultancy purpose. So hopefully with my some knowledge and able to give you some insight on how to do better in the financial planning method. So this is about a little bit of myself. I think now I would like to pass the mic to you. Perhaps I would like to invite everyone, because today the class no big, so we'd like to take a little bit of time to understand a little bit about you. So perhaps you can share what's your name and how long you join in life. Then you can add a little bit anything about yourself. So perhaps I start from the list or in front first.
Hi, good morning. My name is Nina King. I'm from Kampa, Ipoh. I joined Manulife 3 years. Hi, good morning. My name is Faith Manikam. I'm from Lanka. I'm an agent in Manulife since 2024.
My name is Frankie. I'm from Kajang. I'm with Manulife with almost 2 years. Very new.
Hello, I'm Jason. I joined Manulife here from Siras. Joined Manulife almost 1 year.
I'm Nandaying from BSP USJ. Then just joined Manulife 1 year plus. I'm Jasmine from Sharan. I'm joined Manulife just half year. Still new.
Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Daisy. I'm joined Manulife under IFA almost 4 years. Thank you.
Hi, morning everyone. I'm Kelly. I'm from Subang. I'm joined Manulife 3 years.
Hi, my name is Teo Siang. I'm from Subang Jaya. I joined Manulife around 1 year.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Ian. I'm from RFA, and then I joined Manulife, I think about 5 years. About 5 years. Okay, maybe. Something about me, I do rock climbing, and I coach some kids also. Yeah.
Hello, good morning. My name is Hadisa. I'm from Kota Baru, Kelantan, and I joined Manulife since 2023. About 2 years.
Morning, I'm Joanne. I think I in Manulife around 2 years ago, since 2023.
Morning, I'm Yen. I joined Manulife
since 2012, but then I'm as an agent 1 year plus.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Darren. I'm from Sumanjaya. So I joined Manulife since 2020. It's 5 years.
Yeah, we have new friends actually, perhaps let him settle down, then we invite him to do a quick introduction about himself, okay? Come, friend. So you may share with us what's your name and how long you joined Manulife, anything about yourself, okay? So please,
Hi, good morning. My name is Basmalai. I'm from Patti. Hotel.
Okay, how long you joined Manulife?
More than 2 years.
More than 2 years. Okay, nice to meet you.
Good morning, I'm Caroline here.
Alright. So how long you joined Manulife?
Around 2 years plus.
2 years plus. Okay, thank you. Okay, good. So the next, I think everyone you get to know a little bit about your friend and colleague. I think good, but not enough. So the next session, I would like to play the small game for you to get to know your colleague slightly better. Okay. So the game we call it Find and Connect. You heard before this game? Heard before? No. Okay. Don't worry. So it's very simple. Actually, in fact, I'm going to pass you a small piece of paper here. And here, actually, in fact, they have the few items. Actually, in fact, it's get to know your colleague better. So you work around and move around, find the people who match the description in the box here. So once you find, then you ask he or she to put the name and also sign. And each one of you actually in fact only can appear one time in the box. That's means you cannot repeatedly look for the same person to fill for the while, okay? That's means one person can help you one time only. So in order to complete the mission, you have to find total 15 person to match the description here. Okay, so anyone you completed the mission, the number one, you complete 15 boxes here, you just raise the hand, then we know you're number one. Okay, then I would like to give you 1 minute to complete the mission. So once the music on, then you start. So they have two ways, either the music stop or got any winners to complete the total 15 signature. Okay, then I will pass you the list. You look at the content first. Look at the content first. When the music on, you only start. Okay, you pass on. Yeah, don't see the content first. We start together. So first you need, I think you need a pen. Okay, you need a pen. So when you do this game, actually, in fact, you are not limited to sitting in a seat. Actually, in fact, you can stand, you can walk around to look for your friend, your colleague to help you to find the description into the picture there. Okay, so everyone get the paper? Yes, you got the pen? So next, are you ready to start the game? Yes, okay, so let us count down. 3, 2, 1, let's start. You can stand, you walk around, don't worry. Once you complete 3 teams, just raise your hand to indicate that you have completed the mission. Last 20 seconds. Countdown 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, nice out, nice out. Okay, nice out. Okay, good. Okay, everyone, back to your seat. Back to your seat now. Okay, back to your seat now. So, any winner? Anyone completed total 15 signatures so far? 15? 15? No. 2. Completed all? Only one? Oh, okay. So we have the winner today. Okay, can we invite? What's the name again? Caroline. You also completed 15. One. Okay, then she completed 15. Okay. 12 only. Or total 12. Oh, sorry, 12. So you completed all. Okay, come. Can you come forward in front? Okay, give her a round of applause. Okay. So if you complete all, am I right? Since you get the signature, you get to know everyone already for at least 12% here, am I right? Can you share? Okay, for example, so someone mentioned they visited 5 countries. Then you share that who is the person and which 5 countries. Okay. Okay. Then at least you share whatever you know, whatever you find throughout the activity. Yeah, I pass my mic to you.
Okay. Love coffee more than tea, Lee Mei Mei. Okay. Andy has been a famous person. Andy is this one. And sorry, Andy Lau.
Who's Andy?
Sorry?
Who's Andy? Who's Andy?
Andy Lau.
Who's Andy Lau?
Who write Andy Lau?
Oh, you say yourself.
This one is a woman. Rachel.
Is it Rachel?
Don't know. He signed Andy Lau. I write the.
Oh, famous also speaking answer. Then the next chapter, we talk about chapter 2, risk management and insurance planning. Okay, this part I think is your expertise. Because from today, just now, on the introduction, I noticed that most of you join Manulife for 1 to 4 years. Okay, I think 4 years is the max in this group here, 1 to 4. I think 1 to 4 is very good already because you are not a very new. 1 is very long already, 12 months already. It's not considered new. But 4, I think is a very experienced. 3 to 4 is very experienced. So for this topic, chapter 2, I think is something is your expertise. So we're going to discuss about risk management and also insurance planning. Okay? So for this chapter, actually, in fact, our objective, we have the 4 objectives to achieve for this chapter. The first one, we want to understand the impact of the risk on the financial planning. And the second, we want to define what is risk management when we discuss about insurance planning. Third, we want to discuss and also understand the characteristic of the risk and also the risk management. And lastly, we want to understand the risk management process. So this one is the objective for the chapter. So we talk about risk, they have a type of risk here actually. In fact, we talk about risk in the insurance perspective, we cannot define, this means we cannot run away from fundamental and also specific risk. So just now the chapter 1 is review. Now we're trying to zoom more detail, and particularly when the moment we talk about insurance planning perspective. So the first one we look at fundamental risk and versus specific risk. And second, we're going to discuss about dynamic risk versus the static risk. Actually, in fact, they are contra one. What will be different, we're going to discuss in the later part. So later, we're going to talk about the per risk and also the speculative risk, what will be different. And we're going to continue to discuss about some risks, they can be insurable, and certain risks, they are uninsurable one. Okay, so what will be the type of this means how to define these few. And lastly, for this chapter, we're going to talk about the financial related and some risk actually in fact is non-financial related one. So we're going to discuss 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 together for this chapter. So we talk about per risk here. We talk per risk actually in fact is very per, and actually in fact we refer on this one is different on the three very important elements. One with the personal risk, and second one property risk, and also liability risk. Okay, when we talk about personal risk, am I right? Personal risk actually in fact is referring to the personal, particularly on a life event. They include, for example, such as birth, such as the aging, the illness, death, unemployment, or they can be happen due to I live too long, due to retirement. After retirement, but I still cannot retire, I still have to work. All this kind is referred to individual personal risk. Personal risk, all these events, okay? Then whereby we talk about property risk, actually property risk is referred to those, I have the property. Property can be real property, can be the asset I have. And all asset I have, for example, my vehicle, my car, my motor, my property, all is belong to my asset. And all these property actually, in fact, sometimes property they may have the risk of, for example, due to accident, fire happen. My property, direct, indirect, no case, in this case. Then they may happen indirect, for example, a few months back, they have the accident happen in the Putra Height. The accident happened, the big fire and so on. All this one is indirect happen or direct happen, damage my property. All this one is talk about risk on my property. So how we define, how we analyze on this part. And lastly, actually, in fact, is liability risk. Liability risk actually, in fact, is losses they causes by other property. It can be due to some duplication, they can be due to some religion, some this kind of so-called liability. Okay, liability. So actually, in fact, for these three things, am I right? All is referred to per risk here. And just like I mentioned, insurance company they can take what? They can take per risk only. Insurance company they can take per risk only. That means all the risks we mentioned here, they can be underinsured under insurance company. Okay? It's not mitigated risk, that's why we transfer risk to insurance company in this case. Okay, then we look at the losses on the per risk. Of course, how we identify actually, in fact, there are a few things here. First thing, we talk about per risk and marine losses. We look at the concept of risk management. First thing, we must identify what with the potential per risk we're going to encounter. And once we identify, next thing is we're going to collect the data and also the information, collect what with the potential, the situation and so on. And for all the data we connect, that means the potential risk, they may add on the risk to the per risk. Then from there, we do the evaluation. And lastly, we implementation the management plan. So management plan is certain risks we can try to avoid, certain risks we can try to be insured and so on. So this one with the plan we're going to discuss in the later part. Okay. So we talk about risk management, actually in fact, we have the 6 steps for us to go through. Okay, what will the 6 steps? The first one actually in fact, will be set the risk management objective. Of course, we come to this time, we always ask ourselves, why we want to do this thing? Why we want to do the, set our risk management objective at the first place? Anyone? Why want to set this objective? Before we do anything, why want to set objective on the risk management perspective? Sorry? It's a goal, right? So we always start with the goal first. The same thing apply to the risk management. That means we want to identify, also define, okay, the objective based on the potential. That means before the thing happen, if this kind of accident happens, what will my damage, what will losses, and these losses happen to me, whether I can take it or not. So that's why we must define the objective first. In certain risks we can take then we do the thing now, that's why we can take the risk. In certain thing, certain risk we cannot take one, we must find a way, try to minimize the potential risk. So that's why we have to set objective here. And the second, in order to do so, then we have to set two, we have to gather the information. This means we try to gather as many as information we have. Then from there, we discuss the financial situation, detail, and also the physical respect of the property and also the asset. So from here, actually, in fact, we want to identify the risk of our prospect of client, the potential they may expose, for example, the personal, the financial, and liability, these three things. Okay, because per risk, as I said, per risk we can insure, but per risk is different to the personal, financial, and liability. These three items we can transfer risk. Okay, then the step 3 actually, in fact, we start to analyze the information to identify and also assess the risk. So this one is step 2. That's why from this part here, actually, in fact, we start to consider the possibility, the occurrence, that's why how frequent they will accrue the risk. Okay, so this one is identified. And step 4, actually, in fact, we try to develop the risk management plan. So I think this one is your expert lah. That's mean now after we identify customer got this risk, for example, not enough so-called the cash flow to cover the medical expenses, for example, due to accident or illness. So in this case, we identify risk, the customer can afford when something happens, he or she has to the hospital. So in this case, then we select the right product. What is the best product to cater and take away the risk for the medical insurance or how? This one is one example. So that's why we select and apply the appropriate management technique. Then the next thing is we implement the risk management plan. That's mean because as a agent or planner, we priority, because we come to risk, they always got many risks one, but we have to priority which one to go first. For example, after identifying that customer may have risk for the medication, and the risk for the live too long, live too short, then got many things. So based on all the risks, then from there we cannot do everything at one month because of the budget constraint. Then we do the priority, which one to go first, second, and third. Then lastly, then we continue, we review, we monitor, and devise the risk management plan. So here basically is a 6-step for risk management for our client. So with the moment we developing a risk management plan, we know they have the 4 things here: risk control, so and also risk detection. So this one is referring to the possibility of risk occurrence. That means how frequent they can happen one. And this one actually, in fact, when it happens, how is the severity of the losses happen to our case here. So this one is different how we do the thing. And this thing actually, in fact, the 4 items here is something we want to discuss for today. First thing we come to risk, actually, in fact, how we can do the risk control. Okay, then in certain cases, how we do the detection of risk, because certain risk actually, in fact, customer can take once, then they take themselves. For example, I give you one particular example. Right now, actually, in fact, all the medical insurance premium increase a lot, right? Premium increase a lot, and other people start complaining, wow, premium so expensive. So in this case, after we discuss with all the companies, they discover they come to solution, because certain risks actually, in fact, customer can take themselves. For example, they go for the option for deductible. They say 500, 1,000, 2,000. This is a risk actually, in fact, customer can take themselves because they can afford to pay. So then they take care, they are 500, 1,000, the deductible part. Balance, they cannot take a bigger portion. Then we transfer to insurance company. So that's why you only buy the medical insurance to cover those, for example, above the deductible level. Okay, so this one is risk transfer. But across certain people, we practice for risk awareness. Means they totally, for them, they may feel that I do need medical insurance, I totally avoid the risk at all. So, and this one will be the few possibility how we develop the risk management plan for our prospect to our client. So we can run well 14, okay, 14 here. But these 4 things actually, in fact, I want to zoom more detail. First thing we look at risk control. Risk control actually, in fact, is a strategy used to manage risk that cannot be avoided. So in this case, for example, as I use back as an example, like medical expenses is something you can avoid because the medical insurance is so expensive. No, medical costs are expensive now. Last time, I still can recall, many years ago, I think about 20 years ago, when I first step in, become an insurance agent 20 years ago, am I right? My client will come to medical claim, few hundred only one. I seldom see 4-digit claim one, without medication claim, 500, 1,000. Few thousand is for me is a big claim already. But if you recall, if you in the industry for past few years, look at the claim, what will be the amount? Like last few days, my own brother admitted to the hospital to do the simple so-called servicing. The bill itself cost more than 10,000 already, just the daycare itself. So if you compare the medical cost 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and compare today, so expensive. So we know something we cannot control is medical bill as the inflation keep increasing. We cannot control it. But how to do that? How to manage this kind of risk? Okay. And second, actually, in fact, we talk about this part. That's been we try to risk avoid. That's been actually, in fact, this one will be the strategy we carry out. We're using one of combination of the several technique. We try to elimination, substitution, segregation, and isolation. So actually, in fact, this 4 technique actually, in fact, is helping us to try to avoid the risk. The first one we call elimination. This means we try to avoid engaging in dangerous sport to prevent injury in the hospitalization. Okay, this part here, for example, we know some activity, for example, just now I use my friend case driving very dangerous but enter the water, the risk so high. So in order to prevent this thing, we try to avoid this means we use the elimination, this technique. We try to continue driving. Then no risk already because the activity you stop very much. And certain people commented play badminton very dangerous. Is badminton very dangerous nowadays? How you define? Badminton is high risk or low risk? Anyone play badminton here? Oh, many. So do you think how you define badminton high risk or low risk? 3 risk for MC due to badminton. What happened? You fell down. So after the wow, how much you spend for medical fee? 600, okay. So after this accident, so how you define badminton? High risk or low risk? High risk. Okay, so if you practice the elimination way, am I right? Then start from today onward, you will play badminton, no? Then you won't injure due to badminton activity. This is the way. For example, if I practice this part, and if we use the same example. If this one cannot, I must play some sport. No problem. We got second technique we call substitution. There's been now start from now onward you will play badminton. You play what? Now pickleball. Pickleball they say more low risk compared with badminton. So this one we call it substitution. This means we try to choose alternative activity to replace the badminton. So this one we call it substitution. Then the next one actually in fact we call it segregation. Segregation, okay, this one is not related. Segregation is another way for us to manage the risk. And this part actually, in fact, we try to segregate out some high risk thing together with low risk. For example, let's say I give an example like one store warehouse. They store a lot of very dangerous liquid in the storehouse. So in this case, we know when something happened due to some fire, entire warehouse will go case due to the fire activity. Right? So in this case, then we can segregation is when we store those very dangerous liquid in the separate warehouse. So we try to minimize the risk happen. So this one is the way we manage the risk. But of course, the last thing we call it the national planning. So national planning actually in fact is the manufacturer they should have the multiple supplier for the critical raw material to avoid supply shortage. Okay, so this one we call it national planning. And this part I would like to share an example. I think we talk about the corporation itself, right? I think Apple, we talk about Apple. Is one of the company they doing very well for the national planning one. If you notice one Apple product, we talk about Apple. Anyone use handphone? Apple handphone? Anyone? Many, yeah. So when you look at your handphone, which country produce your handphone? Is China? Your product, the product is being your handphone, the production manufacturing from China. China, okay. Let's say the end product from China. But when you open up your handphone, your iPhone, you open the separate one by one, you will notice that your screen is not from China. The certain chipset is not from China. And I think Apple, this company, they do very well in their national planning. They do repeat order the same thing from same company and same country one. Because the policies may change. For example, right now you look at what happened to US, they changed the new president. So what happened to US now? They start to implement a lot of tariff and so on, right? If you notice, actually last week they got a new happen. One of chipset company called NVIDIA. NVIDIA, they offer something because now their government stopped them for export their chipset to China. So due to the tariff, but what NVIDIA offer? They offer their own company certain dividend percentage to the US government in order for them to continue export the chip to China. So this was a new way. So we know why we talk about national planning so important, because Apple know, because the political issue, they may have many uncertainty in the risk. If one thing, for example, if they only focus on order one so-called product for one country or one company, if anything happens to this country, this company, the entire production will be corrupted already. So that's why they cannot have let this thing happen. So this one we call it national planning, okay, implemented by Apple. So this one is few method we talk about how we can manage the risk. Okay. So of course, we also can do some risk detection. That is, we accepting and detect the risk instead of transfer to other. And this one actually, in fact, one of the example is like, for example, the medical insurance, the deductible, the co-payment. Because now these are risks we can take, right? So we take it up, we take the risk, then we transfer the remaining to insurance company. So this one called detection. Okay, because we know that the possibility is there, but we can afford to have this kind of risk. Okay. So the next one will be the medical care. So medical care, we cannot run away, we need money lah. We need money. So what should we do when we are old and don't have the sufficient money for our medical treatment? All these things we have to trigger back that we look at the data. This data actually, in fact, 10%, we talk about 10% of the population in Malaysia, they are senior citizens. And I think the aging population in fact is not only happening in Malaysia. Many countries they suffering the same. Also, even though those very strong countries like China also having the same, they also facing the aging situation. So are you aware that because with the moment I'm teaching in China, am I right? I noticed now the China government they also give a lot of incentive to their people to encourage they give depend on them for retirement. Okay, I think obviously answer is no lah. So I think in this case, actually, in fact, they give us some signal that today the someone can depend on is ourselves. So that's why when we want to depend on ourselves, you ask yourself question, do we have the sufficient retirement fund? So the inflation has become the nightmare for many retirees, and they are one third of the children nowadays, they do not support their parents financially. This is a fact, it's a fact. So EPF actually in fact is insufficient. It's insufficient to support retirement. This is the reason you look at the coming very soon, I think in October 10, is our government going to table their latest budget for next year, right? October 10. So, but before they table this thing, I think these few months, they have a new surrounding to our government, they propose what? They propose to have the retirement fund locked in. You cannot take entire fund upon retirement. Are you aware of this thing? Actually, in fact, this thing is government trying to push some news to get some feedback. But whether they will implement or not, you wait until October. Okay, October. Actually, in fact, why government want to do so? Because for the research, okay, I don't have the data, but the data I see before, during for the past few years due to the COVID, the government implemented a lot of so-called incentive for people to take out the EPF. Are you aware that? Anyone you take out your EPF that time? Anyone take out your EPF? Or some of you, or many, okay, many. Okay, you know what is the total fund withdrawal for EPF? Due to the few incentives previously. You take, you know already, you take a lot of money. Then we talk about entire population in Malaysia take out the EPF money for this kind of, so can I say incentive? Relief, okay. So they take out about close to 40 billion, the total fund taken out. Then from the government research, they also discovered that many of the retirees will come to 50 years old, 55 years old. Then they completed, utilized the EPF fund within 3 years. 3 years. And the latest data from JPM also show one thing. Our Malaysian, now we can live longer. Are you aware that now we can live longer? So when we can live longer, but our fund for retirement cannot live not even 3 years. So what happened after 3 years? So this is an issue the government face. So government are aware. So that's why government want to implement the policy, something like Singapore, something like Australia, something like UK, US. They all of their retirement fund, the pension fund, they store in the government. The second one, they cannot take lump sum one. They take partially monthly withdrawal every month. So the government want to implement this thing. At least our people can sustain with the minimum withdrawal. Then they can sustain for a longer period. But when this policy implemented, you are the EPF saver, you are the member. Will you agree? Will you agree? Or no agree? but government policy one implement is confirmed. So I also check with some of my client and my friend. Most of them they say I don't agree, but don't agree with policy implemented is a policy lah. We have to follow, and we have to remember one thing: our government intention is good because they hope that they can helping to cater for our retirement fund for local period. This one is their intention. Okay, then you look at 700,000 Malaysians. Actually, in fact, after they reach 60 years old, they still have to work. They still have to work. Actually, in fact, you look at something, many of them actually after retire, they still have to work. And sometimes we look at, especially like, we look at those hawker center, a lot of people, the elderly, 60 years old, 60 plus, they still work. So if you ask yourself a question, those people, they still work because they really like to work or because they have no choice? No choice. Because they need some income to support their living. And let me show you actually, particularly during 2019-2020, am I right? I think that time what happened is is the whole world that happened COVID, like COVID something happened. And that time actually in fact we discovered one thing, because I also active in the social activity at NGO. So during COVID period, a lot of elderlies, they don't even eat under second cent. They stay at home, they have don't have the food, very bad. And what happened to them actually in fact, because in the past during normal day, they work to earn the daily income. So once the entire market closed, they don't even get the income to buy the food. So that's why they're very suffer. And this happened, okay? And that time particularly the accident hit for the COVID, we know this happening, and this thing they will not end one. So there's been the stories still carry on, even though now the market is covered back to normal. Many of them still back to the same situation. They cannot earn a sufficient fund, even though after retirement. So that's why they have to continue prolong their working life. Okay, so the next we talk about the money concern when the children education. So they also have the person say that it's a sin if a parent do not provide the education to the children. Okay, so in China say 古人说养儿不教，父之父母之父。Okay, so this one comment say if the parent cannot provide the good education to the children, it's a mistake of parent. So someone the NC said. So this means we know, however, we know one thing: the cost of education now is very expensive compared to last time. Last time we complete one degree cost maybe 30,000, 30,000. But nowadays we talk about just complete the higher education for degree, how much it costs? Easily 100,000 nowadays, including the living cost and so on. So can we ensure that all the money is not problem when the moment we our children go for further study? So can we ensure that all the students they with the excellent academic result will get a scholarship? We cannot ensure this part. So that's why as a parent we need to prepare for our children education part. So we want to make sure that when the moment our children education is not the issue when the moment they reach the situation. So actually in fact we want to make sure that children education is not a concern, but the reality is the education fee nowadays they increasing 10% every year. So this one is for the fact figure. So I just want to give you so many examples. Actually, in fact, is for the purpose. I just highlight one thing. Insurance is very important. And insurance policy they can cater for all the purpose. We talk about risk management concern. So the important insurance here actually in fact, I just want to share insurance actually in fact is just a contract. So it is served to protect our whole life from uncertainty with a minimum investment of life. So insurance policy is type of insurance we talk about is a financial product to help us to fulfill our commitment with a minimum premium and to helping us to take care of our family, take care of our children education fund, take care of our retirement fund, take care of our hospitalization, the medical fee and so on. So insurance policy is served for all the purposes, just that how you place the insurance policy plan into the different purpose. So in nutshell, the insurance policy actually in fact is a forced saving that can ensure that a favorable return in the long run. Okay, so insurance policy also is a tax saving and to ensure that our asset can be transferred to the next generation. So protect one client when he or she was terminally illness. So all this one is a benefit about insurance policy. But the question is, when talk about insurance policy so good, the next question is who should be the insurer? Okay, so who should be insurer? Manulife, of course. Okay. So now the question is, we know insurance is important. We know Manulife is company we look forward. But the next question, okay, very important key question: how much is enough to make the need? Because just now the gentleman said it's based on the calculation rule of thumb. But you know, rule of thumb is a perfect model, it's a good model, but you think it's a perfect because certain prospect we challenge your study, one rule of thumb, one times 5, one times 3, one not times 10. So different people have different assumptions. So today, for this chapter, actually, in fact, we would like to discuss that how we analyze the risk and how to using the financial planning perspective to do the valuation for the someone, how much he or she worth it. This is the matter we discuss. So we look at the risk associated with the premature death. So actually, in fact, we come to this part here. There are two tests to identify the risk. The first one is there the risk of the income loss. Second, will any dependent suffer hardship due to the individual debt? So this one is a test individual of the risk. So the second, when this, they say we know someone income loss is something damage to the family. Someone, if the income loss going to bring the hardship to the survivor family, we know this is an issue already. The next step is we how to measure for the life. So for today, for this chapter, we're going to study for two methods. One we call it the human life value method. Okay? This method very important. Okay? Then the second one, need analysis method. For entire chapter, more than 80 slides, I think you just have to identify and understand these two things. Human life value method and need analysis method. Okay? Now we look at the concept of the human life. Human life actually, in fact, this concept came from this professor. Okay, professor. This professor commented, a person's human life value is based on their ability to earn the income. So the death of an individual results in the loss of present value of the income relied upon by the dependent. So the focus of the human life value, the focus here is on the potential loss of income. Loss of income. Okay. So loss of income, actually, in fact, we can protect it throughout the purchase life insurance and identify the actual financial losses and also represent the potential income they may lose, include the growth rate. So these are the four key here. The issue here is today when the moment we use the human life value method here, am I right? We have to consider few factors. First, the number of years until retirement. Because we have to assume that the number of years until retirement, and second, we have to apply the reasonable discounted rate. Okay, this one human life. Okay, this is the formula. This is the formula. Ooh, okay, so the concept of human life, the value of human life actually in fact is defined as a present value of potential loss of income to the dependent caused by the person's death. And this is a formula here. Okay, so the formula basically actually in fact they are take consideration the total income required to meet the annual need over the year and the annual income need and also compound interest for total income and lastly what will be the duration after retirement to last you. Okay, this formula you need to memorize, okay, because if you memorize it's very tough and very difficult, but you have to understand the concept why this formula is coming out and how to apply when this thing come out. Okay, just check, anyone you familiarized with the financial calculator? You know how to function for the financial calculator? You know, right? You learned before, time value of money. Okay, anyone to know what I say? Okay, time value of money. Okay, so for this formula, am I right? You need to use a financial calculator. Okay, to understand this one, to calculate this one. But good news to you. Your exam they don't come out so difficult question. You have to understand the concept. They will test out you some scenario. You have to understand the concept, why this figure, this answer will coming out. Then the answer from there. Okay, so you do need to operate the financial calculator in your exam tomorrow, but you have to understand the concept. Okay. Okay. I think we use some example for the explanation. Okay. For this case, okay, we look at this case here. This one is a Jason Mark. Jason Mark today currently is 30 years old. So he planned to retire at the age 55. Oh, okay, age 55. His annual income is 80,000, which 6,000 is used to support the family over the next 25 years. Assuming his income growth rate equal to the inflation rate, which is a 6%. So the human life value, how is the formula? Okay, when it comes to this kind of scenario, am I right? I always encourage participants, all the students here. Okay, simple. Every time we come to this kind of scenario, you always draw the line. The line. That means we call it the line, one line. So the line will be easier for you to explain the situation. That's mean for this case actually in fact the line here we talk about 30 years old. So he planned, that's mean Jason planned to retire at age 55. So at the moment his annual income, we talk about annual income is 80,000. 80,000 and but 80,000 he only used up 60,000 to support his family living expenses. So we based on this income, right? We had to calculate at the moment his income growth equivalent to the inflation. This means every year actually in fact we talk about income. At the moment he earning this 80,000, but this 8,000 will be increased every year at the inflation of 6% per year. So when the moment we draw the picture here, right, then will be easier for us to do the calculation. So today if you use the financial calculator, they always have the button, they have a few buttons here, they have the payment, they have the mode, they have the payment here, inflation, N and PV. And the PV is the present value. So today, if we want to calculate the concept, we talk about human life value, right? We have to calculate based on the inflation of my income over so many years after retirement, then what will be the present, the current value required today? This means the lump sum today, what is the amount needed? Okay, today if you, for your normal day practice today, right, I think you don't need to bring your financial calculator when the moment you make prospect. If you have the financial calculator app installed in your phone, I think it's a good enough already. Okay, so if you go to install the one financial calculator, what's the name? Okay, sorry, TBM. You got TBM in your phone calculator. This one, this one good. This one good. Yeah. What's the name for this one? Easy calculator. Easy calculator. Okay. If you got this calculator in your phone, it's very good for you to practice every day. You open the one function called time value of money, then you can easily to answer this part already. So how we do for if okay now we talking about the practical way with the moment using the financial calculator. It's very simple because based on this figure here, am I right? We know every year you need 60,000 to support your family, am I right? So we take this figure 60,000, you key it in the payment because it's every year you pay to family. You key 6,000 into family, but remember put negative one because you pay money out. So it's a cash flow out. So negative 60,000. Okay? Then after that, we know this figure will be increased every year 6%. So the interest rate, the I, you put 6%. You put 6%. Annual rate because they compare every year. So you compare annual rate. Then after that, we know how long because you look at 30 to 55. Today to 55, what will be the in between? What is the total duration? 25 years. So the N, you put 25. So after you got 1, 2, 3 information here, what we need to count? We count PV, the present value today. Then what will the answer? So once you key information 1, 2, 3 into your calculator, then you press PV. So what is the PV today? Okay, 830,000. Everyone, you manage to get this answer. So this one will be the simple way if you today you will use your financial calculator. So there's actually in fact this assumption also very good with the moment we talk to our prospect. So they say today I have to provide the income. They say for example, I have to spend let's say 100,000 every year to support my family. But the issue is when something happened to you, what happened to your family? Because today we talk about, let's say today young couple 30 years old, young couple, he earn 100,000, support the family income 100,000. So he earning 100,000 every year until 55. So now we put the assumption that hey, something happened to you, the damage to your family. If we based on the formula we call concept of human life value, actually your value worth more than $1 million. So in this case, the question how you define I worth this figure. Then this is a formula because we look at this 100,000 every year, but 100,000 your income will grow up because every year maybe you earn the income will be inflation that will increase 5%, 7%, 10%. We put the assumption the interest rate. Then after compound for 25 years, then we count back today the present value. And this present value, it is, we call it human life value. Human life value. So at least when the moment we talk about prospect, we know after the income, we put assumption. Based on this case, we know you work 830,000 day, something happened, this damage, this something damage to your family, to the income. So why not we come some solution for you? Maybe you put aside 2% of your saving, 2% of this figure. I have to transfer your risk to insurance company. This one is assumption. So at least apart from the assumption for rule of thumb, sometimes if you use the human life value, also very good for the moment you do the prospecting. At least this a figure, no, I say this figure already happened in the market for donkey year. It's something practical in the financial planning perspective. Let me show you the fact you need this figure. Okay, if you don't have, then you have to work out something. If you don't have a solution, never mind. My Manulife got a solution for you. Let us work out something for you, this one. So this one we call human life value. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so across this one we talk about the normal practice. But today for examination, you cannot use calculator. Okay? For examination, you cannot use calculator. You cannot use your phone. If you want, you only can bring financial calculator. But good news is, this kind of calculation question, they will come out tomorrow. Confirm. Okay, I see question, no confirm, they will come out. So good thing for you. But they will come out some scenario. Then you have to put an assumption. So they may test out your knowledge for you to understand the fundamentals. So that's why I say you have to understand the concept. Why the payment 6,000 is handled to payment? Why inflation come in? Why they put in 25 years? So when these are scenario coming, am I right? The best don't lie. So you imagine the scenario. So when the moment this thing come in picture in your mind, it will be easier for you to understand the case. So when you understand the case, you key in all the information here, don't need to key tomorrow, okay? So you understand it, you know where's the question asked, you know how to answer. Because tomorrow they will ask you, test out your understanding about human life value. So human life value will be the earning power, compound so many years, what will be the value today? Okay, clear? So this one is human life value. Consider actually, in fact, this question I like the most because when the moment you understand the concept, it will be very easier for you to answer. Okay. So we look at the concept life value. Actually, in fact, across this formula, this concept is very good, but they also have limitation. Because after this formula practice for so many years, then people discover, there's some limitation. First thing is, when the moment I use this formula, am I right? I have to assume my salary remain consistent throughout the entire period. Do you notice that? That's means if I use this formula, am I right? I have to assume that my salary increase every year at the same percentage one. Let's say I assume 6%, entire period 6%. I put 3%, entire 3%. But we know in theoretical, in practical, in current life, no such thing every year increase certain percentage one, correct? They might frustrate today, next year increase 3%, sometimes increase 5%, they might frustrate one, am I right? So that's why this formula they start to cover got limitation because the salary have to put the assumption that continue, remain the same at the entire period. And second, this formula, we talk about human life value, they have to assume the interest rate they stay unchanged during the whole period. You notice that? Because when the moment I assume that the inflation, because this case easier because they put inflation in salary is the same amount, same 6%. Certain cases we know inflation maybe 4%. No, inflation is 2.5. But your salary maybe increase 3%. So the inflation and salary different percentage one, am I right? So if we use this formula, inflation and also salary increase, the percentage is remain the same from day one. So we know may not happen now. Okay, so may not practical. So that's why we assume that income need remain the same. Then we ignoring other need such as changes in lifestyle and education. So that's why we know actually in fact, if we using this assumption, right, we only based on the income. But sometimes our people, we know that people, their other need, their lifestyle, their education may change, lifestyle may change. So they may not apply into this human life formula anymore. Okay, may not perfect cover. And they also ignore the impact of inflation and does not take into the account the possibility the person may continue working or engage in income generating activity after retirement. So this one we assume 55, but this one we did not assume that after 55 maybe he or she prolong his working or contract, still can earn the income. So this formula they have certain limitation. It's good but not perfect. It's good but not perfect. So that's why they got another formula coming out to improve for the human life. We call it need analysis method. Okay, so this one is the second method. We do the calculate how people work today. And for this method, actually, in fact, they are focused. Actually, this method, we talk about need analysis method. They focus on the allocation of the income to determine how it should be utilized. So for this method, they also help to identify unusual, irregular expenses they may arise upon the person's death. So it determines the cash and income needed by the dependent after the death of breadwinner. Okay, so you look at the formula a bit different because they determine the cash and income needed by dependent after death of breadwinner. So they identify and assessing resources, they determine any shortfall. There are two basic approaches in the analysis. One is the capital depreciation, and second one is the capital detention method. Okay, this one will be another method. Actually, in fact, they focus on a different way. Then, in order for us to do this calculation, right, they got two methods. First one is capital depreciation. Second one is the capital detention. Okay, look at so complicated. Actually, very simple. This method is so simple. First one, we look at the capital liquidation method. And actually, this method is used both principal interest to make the income need. That means we get the fund, but eventually the fund will be fully used up after set period. Then the duration depends on the fund, required income, the interest rate. And the similar assumption to the human life value, but we add on enhancing. Then the duration is equivalent to retirement age minus current age, and we capital liquidation actually affect the customer choose the number of year. Example, 10 minus certain year. Okay, for this method, we use one example, then you have the better understanding already. So for this one, you look at this one, we call the capital liquidation method. This means this is a method. Firstly, we identify what is the income needed for the family first. Okay, so in this case, actually, in fact, let's say every month, look at this case, Mr. A, currently they earn 4,500 per month. Okay, earning 4,500. He's married, his wife working, no working, two children, age 4 and 5. And Mr. A will unfortunately pass away yesterday. Okay, yesterday, too bad, yesterday. So he made us last month, then we can give him some fortune. Okay, too bad, passed away yesterday. So he would like to ensure that his family receive a monthly allowance 3,000 for next 70 years. 70 years, okay? Assuming the fixed deposit interest rate 3.5. How much the estate Mr. A must create immediately to make this go? Okay, so you look at the focus here a bit different. Okay, for this case, actually, in fact, what we focus? We focus on the income needed for the family, am I right? Now, this Mr. A commented, he want to make sure that every month, okay, the same thing now we draw a line. I think, okay, draw a line will be easier for us to understand the case. First thing, he mentioned, he want to make sure that every month he got the income to the family. What's the figure? 3,000. So 3,000 times 12. This means every year 36,000. This means this is the income he want to give to the family every year if something happen to him. Okay, this is clear. Then how long? Actually, in fact, he assumed that if something happened to me, at least the fund, I want to make sure the fund can last for at least 70 years. 70 years. Okay? So this one is something he want. Then he also assumed that if today, this fund, I want to make sure park into the fixed deposit which can generate the interest rate for 3.5%. Okay? This one is the assumption he gave. So in this case, actually, very simple. Based on 0 to 70 years old, when it comes to 70, this one is a 0. This means definitely they will need to calculate what is the lump sum needed in order for me to take up every year 36,000 to my family. I take up every year 36,000, but my total fund will be reduced because I keep on taking out. Remaining funds still can earn 3.5. But upon 70 years old, my total fund value will be 0. So in this case, based on this assumption, what will be my total fund required capital upfront? So the same thing, actually, in fact, based on this situation,